Hey guys, in today's video we are building a decompression program in Rust to extract all the contents of a zip file. Now this is the second part of the Rust 50 Rust projects playlist series that I'm building right now. So this is the second video. In the first video we actually built a program to compress a file into a zip file. So today we are going to be unzipping a file to extract all the contents. Now in the previous video we used a program, a package or crate called Flate2. Now in that crate, Flate2, you have the ability to decompress as well. So we could use that to decompress, but here instead I want to show you another way to work with compressing and decompressing files with Rust. So I won't be using Flate2 because that would make it too easy. So I want to show you another way so that you get exposed to more and more how like more and more ways of working with Rust, so you learn something in today's video. Okay, so I will be leaving this project in GitHub. Okay, so here you can see on my GitHub there is I'm Akhil Sharma 90 on GitHub. If you don't follow me in GitHub, you have to. I mean, I keep putting all these projects there. So this Rust decompress project is already there. Okay, I've also put the zip file for you, so you don't even have to create your own zip file. Okay, I've done that much also for you. So I'm in the place where I usually keep my Rust stuff. So there's a folder called dev stuff and there's a folder called Rust stuff. I'm back. So I'm back in Bangalore. So I'm back to the city that I'm based out of, and I'm back on my main machine, where which is like a very powerful custom built PC that I have, and I'm happy to be working from there now. I'm not traveling anymore. And I'm not using laptops anymore, so I love that. Anyhow, so here I'll show you how to run this program. So you just have to say cargo run, and you'll say the name of the file, which is the zip file 1.zip. It's called 1.zip. Okay, so when it does that, it extracts to 1/go and then 1/try, 1/try/carbon.png. So there were multiple things in that zip file. Okay, let me show you that zip file now. So this is the zip file, but once I decompressed it, right? Once I decompress that file, so once I decompress this file, in that folder that I get, which is the one folder from this 1.zip file, I have a subfolder. So right, so in our program, that means in our program, we don't want to just extract things from the zip file. We also want to have some logic that creates internal folders and extracts the files to the right folders, right? It maintains the right folder hierarchy. So carbon.png, this file is inside this try folder, and then at the same level is another file called go _2.jpg, whatever it was there on my PC. I'm just using that. Okay, so there's a folder and there's a file at the same level, and then both of these are inside the one .zip folder, right, which we just extracted, where we got the one folder. So we don't want just the logic to extract things from the zip file, but we also want the ability to maintain the right like the right hierarchy from inside, right? So we need logic that creates these folders and creates the files inside those folders and all of that. So we have to think about all of that. And so this is the project that I have on GitHub, and you can refer that. And what we'll do now is we'll get started from a project from scratch, so that you can actually see how I'm building it. So we'll get started by building our project. So I'll say cargo new decompress YT for YouTube. So if I cd into it now, I should see that there's a cargo.toml file and an src file. And I will open it up in VS Code now. As you can see, in the src I have my main.rs file, which has the func main. So as we already know, we need a 1.zip file here, which you can download from my GitHub project. I'll leave the link also for that. So that's the 1.zip file that we need. This is the one that we need to unzip and extract information from. All right, so I'll say fs and IO. I'm working with files, so I'll need these two. And there's a pattern that we usually use where you can have two functions. Like for example, you'll have a main function and you'll have another function which you can name anything, but I'm just calling it the real main function, where the real actual logic is going to take place. And from this function you will just be able to cleanly exit from the process, which the real main will have, right? So this is a very, very common pattern. You'll see it in about like 40-50% of the projects that you'll find on Rust. You'll see this kind of a pattern where func main, all that's doing is helping you to exit cleanly from the actual logic, which will be handled by another function. In our case, right now we're calling it real main. Okay. So this real main function is going to, first we'll create a vector for the arguments. So if you remember, when I showed you the demo, we said cargo run, and then we gave the name of the file, which was 1.zip. Now to be able to accept the name of the zip file, we need to work with arguments that the user will input into the CLI. And to do that, we'll use a vector and we'll collect those arguments. Okay. Now those arguments from the environment we have collected into this vector called args, and this args is something that now we can access very easily. So we'll say args.length if it's less than 2, right? So this is something that we did in the last video as well. When we were doing compressing, we checked for the length if it didn't have the required number of things. So for example, we know that we need 2 things, right, which is cargo run, and then we need the actual name of the file. So if it's less than 2, then it doesn't make sense. That means the user is not inputting information correctly. He's not calling the function correctly. So in that case, we want to print out the usage, in the sense, how do you want to use this project? So we'll say usage file name args 0, and you want to return from here. Okay. So when somebody tries to run this program and they forget to pass the 1.zip, the location or the actual file that you want to process, if you forget to do that, then you will print this. You'll say usage, and here you see these curly braces, right, arg0, where you're going to pass, you're going to basically type cargo new. Cargo new will be printed in the CLI, and then the name of the file name. And we'll just show you just file name like that, so that it tells the user that you have to enter the file name along with cargo new to be able to run this program. Okay. But let's say everything was fine, right? If everything was fine and the user did pass the file name as in the argument, so we'll call this variable called file name, fname, and we'll get access to that file name, which will be, if args0 is cargo new, then args1, which is the second argument, which is basically the file name, the zip file name. So here you open up that file, and it's unwrap, not unwrap, it's unwrap. And then we'll use the zip archive reader. So we'll say zip archive new file dot unwrap. Now this archive, right, is going to be a mutable, because whatever file that you read, for in this case was a zip file, we need to copy it somewhere. All the contents, like the contents can be a folder or files, all of that will be copied into another folder. So when we actually ran the program in the demo, you saw that it created a folder called 1, and inside that it had multiple folders and files, right? So this is going to do that job for us. So it's going to help us to do the job for us. So we got the name of the file, then we opened up the file, right? This is why it says name of the file, and then you open up the file, and then you create a mutable archive, which is going to help us to process that file, work with that file. And then all we have to do is go over this archive. So this archive, which is basically the zip file, which we're going to use zip to help us work with it, it's going to have many contents, right? To go over all of the contents, we'll have to use a for loop. So we'll say I in 0, and it'll go on till the complete length of the archive. So here we'll say archive dot by underscore index I dot unwrap. So it starts from 0 and goes over till the entire length of the archive, and there will be multiple files, and we need to go through all those files one by one. All those files one by one, we'll go through them. Okay, that's what by index I means, going through them one by one, all over them. Let's define a variable called outpath. Just want to let you know that when I write a line like this, right, this is basically going to help us with the path of the files that are going to get extracted. But when I write these kind of lines, I'm basically getting them from the Rust documentation. So for example, with the zip files, you see here that with zip file, you use this method to validate the name as safe path, because otherwise carelessly writing such absolute paths that may exist when extracting archives, you allow an attacker to craft a zip archive that will overwrite critical files. So you don't want that to happen. You don't want attackers to overwrite critical files. So this is why you use enclosed name. Now this is completely optional, in the sense you don't have to really have all of this, but you can just but we're just defining this here, the outpath for the path to validate all of that and get that in the outpath variable. Okay. Similarly, when I wrote here function main, the real main thing, I got that actually from Stack Overflow. So from Stack Overflow, if you see, somebody had asked this question, how do you do that? Then somebody had said, okay, this is the way you do it. You say, in your function main, you have this process to exit code cleanly, and then you have a real main function. And I saw this a while back, and you can see this answer is quite old. And in your code, like on GitHub, you'll see this pattern being used very often, right? So all of the things that you get here is just knowledge that I've picked up from here and there, from Rust documentation, from Stack Overflow. So this is why I write some things the way I write them. Like I said, you don't have to use all of these things. You don't have to have a separate function for it. You don't have to have all of this. It's just, I'm just showing you, what you might see when you go to GitHub a lot. This is something that you might see a lot. Okay, so this is why I'm writing the code in this way, so that when you look at a GitHub project, you don't get confused. Okay. So the next thing that you do is you say sum path, and then you say path dot to owned. Now similarly for here also there is, I'm sure there is some story. So here you can see that if you use to owned like this, to owned, you clone the borrowed data. So what you're doing is basically you're cloning all the data from the zip file, because you want to paste it somewhere, right? You want to paste the basically in this case you're just cloning the path and you're getting the path somewhere. And for none, you will continue with the loop. It won't stop here. And then we're going to just check for comments in the file. So we'll say let comment is equal to file dot comment. So So if comment is empty, we're going to print ln the file comment I comma comment. Okay, so the file name of the file will be here with I, and the comment will be there, you know, in case there's a comment. But this like usually doesn't, in our case it didn't happen, right, when we ran the program, because none of those files had any comments. But yeah, all of this, like, this is also again completely optional, right? The main thing here, that I mean, it's not main. I mean, what I'm going to do now is also optional, which is basically maintaining the right folder structure, right? So when I extract the zip file, there is a folder inside the zip file itself, and then that also has a file, and then there's another file that I showed you in the demo. So just to be able to maintain that, we need to write some logic, which again is optional. Like, you don't have to do it, but I'm just showing you the right way to do things. So file, we'll say here file dot name ends with. Now this is a way to check if it's actually a directory or not. So you'll say ends with, and here you'll say print ln file extracted to the location I comma out path. Out path basically, you know, is the path where it has the path. All right, and let me just see if all of this makes sense or not. Yeah, now everything makes sense. So I just was missing this one little double inverted commas. And we'll create a directory. So you have this function called create directory all, and you send the path, the reference to the path, and you say run wrap, and this will create directories. So when I say something like create directory all, I'm basically referring to the Rust documentation again, which helps you to recursively create a directory and all of its parents components if they're missing inside, because, you know, you're working with directories here, not just files. Okay. And then if it's not a directory, then you have your else, and you'll print ln, and you're going to print whatever you saw in the demo that we ran, that hey, this is the file is extracted to this location. That's it. That's all it said. If it was just a file, right? So let's say file extracted to, and these two escape characters, and then here I'll say this. Bytes. Okay. And I then basically file name, which is going to be I, which is going to be embedded here, is going to be at outpath dot display, which is the location of the file, and then you'll also have your file dot size, which is these many bytes, right? So there are three things being printed here to the screen: file name extracted to the location, and the bytes, the size of the file. Right. Now this print ln is supposed to have round brackets, not curly brackets. So I'll correct that. And then the last thing is checking for parents, and if there are no parents, so we'll say p is equal to outpath dot parent. So if p does not exist, you will again create directory. Dot unwrap. Now obviously there are some issues hidden here and there which you need to fix quickly. finally we'll create the out file, which is going to be file create out path dot unwrap and we'll copy the contents there. All right. Now the last and the final stage is where you want to, whatever files you've just created, right? So here you're just printing out the file extracted to that, but the actual logic is happening here, right? The actual copying of the file is happening here, right? So if it was a folder, you created a directory, but still not till now we have not copied that, right? But if it was just a file, you just printed stuff out. You didn't actually do any copying. And then if there were no, like, with the parents checking and all that, you created again directories there. But the actual copying happens here. So it's going through this complete loop, as you see, from in the archive, starting from 0 to the archive length. And it's going to this whole thing depending on whether it was a folder or it was a file, and then doing the last part is just copying that file or folder one by one, and then creating the folders if the folders don't exist for that particular folder which is there inside the zip file. Okay, so and obviously you're working with paths here, the actual paths, and like you saw this and you saw this in the documentation that I showed you. Now there's something that's supposed to happen, which is basically once you get access to once you've created those files, you want to give access to the users for those files, like set permissions, like in Linux you set permissions, right, for those files. So similarly you'll have to do something like that out here, and this is how it works. So you say configuration, which is CFG, and you say Unix, where U is supposed to be small, and then you create these brackets. Okay, and here you'll say the Unix fs permissions extension, so we'll set the mode for the permission so that these will be available to the user who's creating this when the program is running. Set permissions. Otherwise these files will be copied, but you won't be able to read them or do anything with them, which will completely defeat the purpose. All right. Now we want to try our application, so we'll say cargo run, and we'll get some errors, and this is what we wanted. We will now sit and fix all the errors. So firstly, it's saying failed to resolve use of undeclared creator module zip. Makes sense. So zip, that means zip is not there in our cargo.toml file. That's okay. We'll say zip is equal to 0.6.2. So I want to use zip crate, and the version I want to use is 0.6.2, and then this error will go away. But then there are more errors. It says use of undeclared crate. Yeah, that's okay. That'll go away. Cannot find value out path in the scope, but which has two O's. Line number 48. It says. So let's see 48. Yeah, so here there are two O's that also should be fixed now. Do we have any more errors? No, I think everything seems fine now. So let's run the program again. Let's see what happens. Yeah. So as you can see, what happened now is it's saying it ran the program, but it's showing you how to use it, right? So we'll go through the code now, and then everything will make more sense to you. So when I said this, right, when I said that you take arguments from the user, collect them, and if arguments length is less than 2, because right now we didn't give it the name of the file that we want to extract. So the arguments length is less than 2. So it's saying this is how you use it. So you say usage, which is argument 0, which is in our case the name of the project, and then it's file name, whatever file that you want to execute. Okay, so that's how you execute it. And if we do that, so if I'll use it properly, I'll say cargo run 1.zip. So now the first part of the program is very, very clear to you, right? This whole part is very, very clear to you. Then what happens is when I actually gave it the right file, which was 1.zip, it got the file name, it opened up that file, okay, because file name was, if args0 was the first argument, args1 was the second argument, basically was the name of the file. So you got the file name here, open up the file, okay. To open up the file, you use file open, and then you pass the file name by reference. Then you create a mutable archive using zip package that we just imported into crate, sorry, not package. Package is much bigger. Rust crates are much smaller, dependencies basically. So you got the zip crate, and then you used it for that new file that you have now, which is the zip file, and you'll use it there. Now with the help of a mutable archive, you can actually loop through it completely. So the loop actually starts here, and you can see it ends somewhere around here at the end. And we're looping through every single file or folder in the archive. It starts from 0 and goes till the archive length. And then you take each file one by one, and then you get the out path or the path for it. Then you check for comments, and you check if it is a folder or a file. So now you see this folder that was created here called one folder, which is created from the 1.zip file. Here you can see that there's another folder inside called try, and that has a file. And then accordingly, the right file has been assigned to the right parent, right? So we checked if it's a folder, otherwise it could be a file. In both the cases, if it was a folder, it will create a folder for it, which will be done with create directory all, and add the path, which is out path. And if it was a file, it will just say that file has been extracted to this place. But till now, any extraction hasn't happened. We just printed that extraction has happened. Before we've extracted, we've done that. Then you get that file, the out path, and create an out file where you are going to basically copy the contents of the file into the out file. Okay, io.copy. For Unix systems, we have our permissions extension where we're going to set the permissions of the file, of all the files. So all the files that were created, because I'm now being able to read all those files, right? So I now get ownership of those files. So this was important, otherwise I wouldn't be able to do much with those files. So this was our complete program. Now while writing the code, very quietly I had added this 0, and I didn't explain anything about to do with the 0, right, to you. The thing is, the way this pattern is set up, right, where you have your main function and you have a separate real main function, you have to have an i32 being returned from here, an integer being returned. So if you didn't have this, it would say that your function is supposed to return something, and it's not doing that. So it'll say it was expected i32 and found nothing there. So you have to send the 0, and then everything will work perfectly. That's how the pattern is, and now everything works perfectly. So we'll clear that. So now I hope things make sense, right? So if you watch the video till the end, things will make sense to you. If you sometimes when I'm writing the code, I don't explain it, but I actually show it at the end and I explain it to you with the reasons and with an actual demo. So some of the people, they get very impatient and they just leave in the middle sometimes, thinking that why I have not explained it, because I like to show and explain rather than just give you theory. So I hope this makes sense, the whole program. Okay, it's available to you in GitHub. On GitHub, it's available. Go through it completely. and I'll also add comments so that you can refer to them, and whenever you read the code again, you will remember what's what. So that'll be the benefit of having those comments. So thanks a lot, guys. I will sign off now, and the next video, which is video 3, will be about CSV files. So we'll learn how to read from CSV files or create CSV files, whatever, like one of those things. it'll be to do with CSV. Then after that, like, I have a lot of stuff planned, so like, let's go one video at a time. So this was the second video, and I hope you're enjoying this 50 Rust playlist project series, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.